it's time for another episode of Relationship TALK Tuesdays with Suzette. And so thank you so much for joining me. I am simulcasting. I've got Instagram here. Thank you so much for y'all tuning in. I'm sure this is your lunch break. And Facebook is great having you all tune in. This is the first time I scheduled a live, and so I just wanted to make sure, and I see that I am on live. So if this is your first time, put your name in the chat. I'd like to shout you out. Hey, if there's something that I say that resonates with you, put it in the comments. I'll look from time to time to make sure that you are getting what I'm putting down. And today, we are going into the economics of love. My title I chose is For the Love of God and Economics. What is your inaction costing you? What is it costing you? To be complacent, to not do anything, to think that because you keep hearing the words recession and inflation, that it's like, oh, it's time to just cease and desist and tighten your wallet and do all these different things and shut down and not be involved in your relationships. Because did you know that most people's buying decisions are not determined by recession or inflation? Did you know that most people's buying decisions are out of love, out of attachment, out of connection? They sense that there is something that they need, and they find a way. They find a way to make it happen. They find a way. I remember when I was a single parent. For those of you that don't know, I've been divorced twice, right? So even as a married woman, as a divorced woman, as a single parent, as a result of divorce, raising a son, to adulthood, I thought back to what really motivated my decisions. It was because of what I perceived was needed at the time. Even when I did not have 2 cents to rub together, and I had more month than money, what drove my decisions was a sense of necessity. This is necessary. If my son needed tutoring, this is necessary. If I needed a car, this is necessary. If I needed therapy or I needed coaching, it was out of a sense, this is necessary. And if it was an opportunity that I felt like I just could not miss out on, it was a necessity for me. Because how many of you know that when opportunity comes knocking, you're not guaranteed this same opportunity again? There are some things that happen in life that when the opportunity comes, you got to grab it and you got to go with it. But for the sake of those that are saying, okay, that sounds good, Suzette, I did some digging myself. Because if you turn on the news, that's all you hear. Recession, inflation. Recession, inflation. Right? And I decided to drill down to find out what they were. Because, it's been a long time since I took economics in school. And because so many times we hear those terms used interchangeably. Right? So I went to my favorite source of all things, Anybody know what your favorite source of all things online is? Google. So I Googled recession, and I looked at the definitions, and I looked at Fortune, and I looked at different news outlets, and I looked at some economic places. And to put it simply, recession happens when there is a widespread drop in spending. So if that's what causes a recession, then tightening up and not spending is not going to help you get out of a recession. Right? Right? And then I looked at inflation. Now, inflation is a tad different. Inflation is a general increase in prices to the point that it causes concern. And we've had examples of that. Gas prices, right? Food prices, right? Even during COVID, I never would have guessed that the price of toilet paper would almost cause some people to need a second job to afford it, right? To afford it. And so I thought about those things. And I thought about also, y'all, to be completely honest with you, I always also look at my life. And I'm in my 60s now. So I've kind of lived quite a while in life. I don't want to say I'm old, I don't want to say that. But let's say I have a great grasp on the seasons of life and having lived through certain economic challenges. And you know what I noticed before I even saw it on Google? I noticed that almost every 4 years, we hear about a recession. Think about it. Always when it's getting close to an election, economics and recession and all those terms just kind of bombard you. And, after you've lived through things for a while, you realize that it might be uncomfortable, but it's not going to take you out. And so I looked at areas of my life and what I did during recession and how it really, I wanted to share it with you, those of you who are thinking, well, I can't do certain things because of a recession. I can't do things that I feel like are going to benefit me. I can't make the investment. I can't do those kinds of things. I'm going to share with you some things that I want you to consider and some things that I had to consider when I was making decisions. The first thing is you ask yourself, is this an opportunity? Is this an answer to what I've been praying about, concerned about, talking about, wishing for? Because one of the things I've learned is opportunity does not care. Opportunity does not say, well, because we're in a recession and because there is inflation, I'm not going to come knocking. I'm just going to wait till things are better in this person's life. I'm just going to wait till all the planets align. I'm just going to wait for the age of Aquarius. Some of y'all don't know nothing about that. Before I present this opportunity. Opportunity knocks when it's time. Now, what's going to determine whether you receive the benefits of it is whether when opportunity comes knocking, you seize it, or you come up with these seemingly rational reasons not to. And in my lifetime of living through things and coaching women, high achieving women over the age of 40, who have wanted to find love or who have wanted to hit the reset button after a love gone wrong, who've needed to know what they were doing wrong, who've needed answers, and they're at a point in their lives that they're tired of being in the same cycle. They're tired of being in the cycle of failed attempts. They're tired of going through the same thing. The same failure, just a different man wearing different shoes. These women are women who decided that that was more important to them. It was critical to them. And they seized the opportunity. And in my doing that in my own life, one thing that I realized, which leads to my second point, when you look back at the decisions that you made, and you look around and you know that your life is better because of that decision, was it worth it? I made some decisions that I didn't care whether it was a recession and inflation. It didn't matter to me. I just knew the opportunity was presenting and I had to seize it. And I can say that I'm in a better place now because I squared my shoulders and I did it because it was the right thing to do. It was the right time to do it. It was my answer on my answer's terms. And I went for it. And I'm in a better place. And I bet you, if you're over 40 and you look back at your life and decisions that you made where you are in a better place, didn't it at that time seem kind of scary? Didn't at that time it seem like it was the worst time? Didn't at that time you had to kind of wonder, shall I? Or will I take advantage or will I not? And aren't you so glad that that part of your brain that is for you being all that you can be won out over your fear of what you might lose? Aren't you glad? Aren't you glad? And I did that when it came to my relationships. I want to tell you something that I understand. I understand for many of you, your relationships have been what you've put on the back burner. Getting help for your relationships. Getting answers for what has continued to elude you about relationships. I get it. Because for many of us, especially us women over 40, we weren't taught to put our emotional health, our well-being, our relational health. We weren't taught to put that front row center. We were taught to think about the exterior world being more important than our internal world. And so I get it. For some of you, you've been tolerating difficulties in your relationships. You've been tolerating the cycle. You've been doing the same thing with high hopes but not getting good results. I get it. You've been conditioned to suffer in that way. You've been conditioned to be tolerable of the intolerable. I get that. But it doesn't make it right. And in this time, this 21st century, where we as women are exercising self-love. I gotta tell you, self-love is more than getting your hair done. Self-love is more than having a spa day. Self-love is more than, changing things up or going to Paris. Or self-love is more than buying yourself that luxury car you've been putting off for years. True self-love is making sure that you are emotionally well. And if you are tolerating a bad relationship or are suffering as a result of a bad relationship, I have to tell you, that's a priority. That is a priority. That economics, that recession, that inflation should not even come into play. You're the one, and that's just something I had to realize. For all the wonderful things I was doing, all the people I was helping, if I did not put the mask over my face first, then I was jeopardizing everything connected to me. If I wasn't putting my emotional health, my mental health, my relational health, because relationships is where most of us have been damaged the most. So why wouldn't we run toward help for it instead of giving ourselves savvy, sexy reasons not to? All it does is it reveals that in your own mind, you are not important. I want you all to hear me. When you know how important you are, you will not let economics stop you from getting the help that you need. Because if you get the help, you can get another job. If you get the help, you can manifest better for your life. But if you don't get help, it's going to run out. So then the third thing is, what is your inaction costing you? What is what you're trying to avoid doing something about costing you? What is it costing you to keep telling yourself when you have a relationship issue? Oh, I need a new project. Instead of running toward your healing and your answer, you look at things to distract you from it. What is that costing you? Because how many of you know that it's going to catch up with you after a while? How many of you know that what you don't know, that you think you know, is going to catch up with you? And it's going to show up, it's going to manifest that, you know what, I'm not all right. I'm not all right. Just because I no longer feel the effects to the point that I am not stuck in bed, not able to get up, or I no longer feel the hurt and the pain, does not mean you're all right. It just means you've stopped hurting. But it does not mean you've resolved the issue that created it in the first place. And that's my job. That's my passion. That's my calling as your relationship solutionist, to sound the alarm and to shake you from complacency, to shake you from denial, to shake you from this cycle that your familiar mindset keeps right on rinsing and repeating, rinsing and repeating, rinsing and repeating. You will never fully address your relationship issues running away from them. You won't. I don't care how many degrees you get. I don't care how many things you accomplish in life. that will never compensate for what you don't know. And there's so many of us that are going through the rigors of relating in a cycle because we don't know. So if we want to look at the dollars and cents, I was talking with my husband about it. I said, if I was to put a quantitative thing to it, and I was to think about the toll that it's costing. Look at the money spent on recovering from a bad breakup. Look at the cost of rebuilding. If you moved in with somebody or they moved in with you, then there's the moving cost to remove yourself from that situation. Or the stress, the emotional stress of telling him it's time for him to come get his stuff out of your house, and the back and forth, and the he can't come right now, and the I came but you weren't there, and the all the drama. What is it costing you? What is it costing you? So as you listen, and I'm not telling you not to be a mindful consumer, but I'm asking you to really ask yourself the real question. It isn't whether I can afford to get help. It's can I afford not to? When I look at my life and look at what my inaction in my relationships has cost me, or even if you're a parent, what is it costing your children to watch you having gone through it? For those with young children, when you had a serious relationship that didn't work and your children bonded with this person, the toll on them of here's another person that I cared about, that I thought was going to be in my life, and now they're gone. Y'all, it costs. What we don't know about relationships, what we don't know about ourselves, what we don't know about men, it costs. It costs. And so how do you find out these things? Do you keep right on trial and erroring? Well, what has that gotten you? Right? What has been the cost of your trial and erroring? Or do you connect with somebody who knows how to navigate that? Who knows how to help you to get the answers that you need? That's what I had to do. And I'm the better for it. It was worth what I invested. It was worth the investment.